All right, so let's start by demystifying some of the context just locally, right? So if we examine the application of Twitter and how it all works, and if you start looking at Twitter from this lens, it'll change the way that you experience. The Twitter experience is very interesting and it'll make a subtle change in the way you view it perennially if you look at it from this perspective. Like my Twitter is a fucking diary, right? Like I am articulating and building my own comprehensive, coherent philosophy. And when you read anybody's page, I think it's a huge mistake to look at it as some kind of prescription. Like I'm not ushering anybody to do jack shit on my page. Like I am tweeting for myself. And if anybody can pick up some shrapnel or a shred of experience, strength, and hope from things that I have personally overcome, that's fucking great. But that's just a byproduct of me articulating my thoughts, things that have worked for me. So in no way, shape, or form am I ever tweeting, even when we use hyperboles like you motherfuckers or we call people out specifically, it's still for myself. And if you start looking at everybody's page as just them kind of cataloging and chronologizing their own thoughts, it changes the way that you view the app for the rest of your life because none of it's fucking prescription, right? I don't expect everybody to be a fucking hardcore, highfalutin gambler like I am. Just sharing shit that's worked for me. So that's number one. That'll demystify the guru syndrome right off the bat. Number two, 100,000 self-help books are published a year, new ones. And motherfuckers are more lost, hopeless, disparaged, discouraged, morose, languid, depressed than they've ever been before. And I think there's a glaringly obvious fallacy here that nobody seems to want to address, and I'm going to address it right now, which is the idea that if you just work hard enough under every circumstance, in every scenario, that you too can become a smashing, roaring success, which is just clearly not the case. It is a mathematical likelihood. It is a mathematical fact that the vast majority of people on this planet will be ordinary. Will be ordinary. Not everybody is going to bootstrap themselves to the highest levels and firmaments of success. And I think understanding that thesis right off the bat should provide some level of relief and alleviation because I believe everybody should maximize whatever fucking role and capacity that they have. Like you have to decipher your own significance. And there's a quote. So I'll start by saying this. So the self-help industry basically has a bunch of people under the ruse and bamboozled into thinking that if you haven't climbed Mount Everest with just a fucking gym towel, or you haven't sold a tech company by age 9, or you haven't found an herbal cure for herpes, that you're a failure, that you're a fucking loser. And what they're doing is they're just selling you hope. They're selling you the hope that if you just put in enough effort and you keep busting your ass, that eventually you're going to have this massive breakthrough and windfall of spirituality, of resources, of self-actualization, of enlightenment. It's all a fucking sham, clearly. Because if that was true and success was purely effort based, we'd have a lot more fucking retired self-made millionaires at 30 than we do fucking waitresses, bartenders, and fucking janitors. And it's just glaringly obvious when you look at the culture that that's just not happening. That's just not happening for a lot of people. A lot of people are grinding their gears, perusing the bookshelves for the next fucking answer in these books. And after a while, because I have a very unique purview into this because I interact with a lot of fucking people. So I have a very unique insight into the culture because I'm communicating with young motherfuckers all day. In my DMs, the people who read my work are all youngsters coming up. So I have a very unique perspective as to what they're dealing with. And one of the things that I see is that the self-help trap is a very masochistic, self-torturous way of approaching things. It's just, you're just moving from book to book to book to book to book. And each time you're more and more hopeless, more and more perilous. You're in a fathomless, bottomless pit of despair, and you can't understand why. And I'll tell you why. It's because of the ability fallacy. It's because of the ability. And what I mean by that is that essentially there was a quote by Einstein that I love, which is very apropos. And he said, if you judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. I'm going to say that again. If you judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. It's a great fucking quote because it's very obvious that greatness is not really self-anointed. Like, there is a stochastic random element of chance to success that nobody wants to address because it flies in the face of anything is possible under every circumstance at any given time for everybody, which is clearly a lie. It's like, and here's what's interesting. Like, you can easily shred that argument to pieces when you look at it, because people understand it from a physical perspective, but that for some reason with the cognitive perspective, they don't understand it. It's like a guy like Einstein was just compelled to do whatever fucking work he was doing. The motherfucker didn't need to read. There's no self-help book on how to become an Einstein. There's no self-help book on how to become a Michael Jordan. There's no self-help book on how to become a Michael Phelps, because people understand intuitively that there's a lot more going on there behind the scenes. Yet every fucking tech CEO and titan of industry and trailblazer somehow thinks that there's some formulaic, generic, step-by-step blueprint to becoming a multimillionaire. Now, when you look at a guy like Usain Bolt, you realize how absurd it would be to compare yourself to him and say, well, I'm never going to be as fast as Usain Bolt. That's like a glaringly obvious answer, right? Like, or Michael Phelps. Like, I'm never going to slice through the water like Michael Phelps does. But nobody beats themselves up for that perceived athletic disparity. But then when it comes to cognitive ability, everyone's comparing themselves to everybody else, which is bizarre. Because clearly there's some physical prowess there that you will never be able to mimic. I mean, that motherfucker Michael Phelps, he's got the torso of an eel, and he's got other fucking genetic gifts that are just not replicable. But somehow, everybody, when it comes to the cognitive, because it's more abstract, you're like, you're beating yourself up to shreds that you don't have the fucking monk discipline of fucking Elon Musk or the fucking Jedi equanimity of fucking Eckhart Tolle. And it's like, dude, cognitive abilities are extremely disparate. Like there's just, people just have fucking gifts and some people just don't have it. And so trying to map and mirror a fucking generic blueprint to success based on somebody else who's nothing like you guys are not even remotely in the realm of similarity. And you're trying to take a model and you're trying to disabuse yourself of your natural state, and you're trying to replicate somebody else's recipe. Of course, you're going to be blown to smithereens. And of course, it's going to lead to more despair and low self-esteem. It's just fucking obvious. It goes back to the fucking quote. I mean, you got fish trying to climb trees, and then you're thinking you're fucking stupid, but it's just because you're not in your own fucking lane. It's because you're not in your own lane. And then what this leads to is it leads to a very strange portal into very other bizarre ways of trying to gain self-esteem and confidence, like fucking affirmations, which self-help industry is hugely propped up on. And when you look at like affirmation, like you take an unconfident guy and you start telling this dude to tell himself he's worth it, he's lovable, all these fucking gay little sayings in the mirror, that's just going to further entrench and magnify the negative belief system. Because You can't reverse the natural process of building confidence. Like, that's what an affirmation is. You're trying to reverse the natural process of how building confidence is actually done, which is an inside job. It's an inside out type thing. You have to drill outward from within. And that's like an outward way of doing it inwardly. It's a very inverted way of trying to build self-esteem. And it leads dudes to even further confidence issues. You're just reinforcing negative beliefs because you're not ready to believe that those affirmations are true. So it just becomes this endless cycle of insanity. And I mean, I wrote some shit on this that I'm going to read to you because I think it's hilarious. Um, you can't. Here's the most destructive thing that I've seen, and I think this is profound. It's the idea that people are comparing themselves to their potential. Like you're basically comparing yourself to what you think you could be, which is the recipe for disaster. Because if you accept the fact that you're on this earth to maximize whatever role you're in, like there are natural winners and natural losers. And it's so hard for people to accept this, but it's true. And if you're someone who just can't get your life together, then you have to maximize that. You have to be the best at not getting your life together, if that makes sense. Because not everybody's going to be a smashing success. I can't emphasize this enough. And I feel like this should bring people great peace instead of angering them or instead of making them upset or salty. I feel like this understanding this and accepting it for what it truly is removing a lot of pain, because the reality is good is no longer the standard. Like everybody thinks they have to just be fucking great or the best. But being good will provide you a pretty fucking solid life. Like you can have a pretty fucking outstanding lifestyle, be in good standing in your community, have a fucking good family, make a good living, and just be fucking good at what you're doing. But I think everybody's afraid to just even be good. Everyone's kind of comparing themselves to this very unrealistic, bizarre standard um, of kind of impossibility. No, no, no. I don't think it's true whatsoever that anything is possible. I think that thinking has absolutely thrashed and eviscerated more men than it saved. It's a fucking lie. Telling somebody, oh, well, if you believe you can do that, anything is possible. Come on, man. Let's get fucking real. We know how that ends for most people. It's just not true. And so I think that it's very important to find your own rhythm in your own art, in your own capacity. And we have to start fucking kind of breaking down these power blocks of these. I mean, like you guys literally think if you're not swan diving off of yachts in Saint Tropez with Kim Kardashian as an onlooker, that you're just not even a player in the game, which is bizarre. And I think that the self-imaging thing is important because, like, when it comes to famous people and worshiping that culture, I've never, ever, ever been excited or like if I've ever bumped into a famous person. I grew up in Beverly Hills, so I've definitely seen like pretty much every movie star. But when I would see them in person, I've never been flabbergasted or like genuflected or been a sycophant. Like I can definitely stand as a bystander and appreciate someone's praise and accolades. I can look at a billionaire like Jeff Bezos and certainly admire the work he's done. But I view myself as a player in the game as well. Like I'm also a player. I'm here to do whatever work I'm supposed to do. So I can't understand or fathom how you can put a celebrity figure above yourself, which is what the self-help thing really is you're worshiping an author whose life experiences are completely different from your own, and you don't see yourself as a player or an actor in your own capacity. So then there's just a failure to execute all across the board, and now you're just not going to do anything because you feel like you have to be the best. You have to be the best at your craft before you even start. How the fuck does that work? Like, how do you think you're going to pull that off? Very fucking bizarre inversion. Let's open this up for some questions. Annika, what's up?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I totally agree that we don't have any control over our lives anymore because we are so distracted by everything that sometimes we just need someone to tell us, you know what, you can do it. And that's where the books come in. These self-help books have been so like famous, like popular nowadays. And I love these books because sometimes I lose myself and I don't have an older sister. I don't have someone that can tell me, like, you know what, you need to get back on your feet. And these books, they remind me of that. And also, I totally agree with the celebrity culture. I think that's where we kind of lose ourselves even more. We see one type of success in front of us all the time on the media. And so I like some people, for them just being a mother is a success, you know, and I feel like those type of slow living is not popular. Like you don't really see slow living in our society. You see fast paced living. Um, what how can you get more famous, more rich? And it's never someone who's settled and who's comfortable. It's always have to do more and more. I don't know, that's just what I want to say.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Who else do we got? Step up, don't be shy. Here we go. Bingus, talk to us. DM me. I'll send you to a brothel to blow off some of that steam. Colonel, what's going on?
Brood, big fan here. Is there anything you would suggest supplementing with the self-help books?
Mm. Dude, I don't think, see, every successful person that I've ever met, I don't think they ever read self-help books. I think they've read specific books in their industry. So I think that's kind of more of where I'm trying to push people is I understand if you're a finance guy reading finance books, that makes sense to me. But I don't think this all encompassing one size fits all prescription is helpful at all. Um, if anything, because I've read all these books, I've literally read every fucking self-help book in the game. And the only conclusion that I drew at the end was that success formulas are not generalized. like and honestly, like it always leads you to the end conclusion that at some point you have to write your own fucking book. I mean, literally, like at the end of browsing every fucking self-help book, the only conclusion I came to was, all right, and now it's time to write my own. And here I am writing my own. So we got Velociraptor.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yay. Yeah, all I wanted to say on this topic, because I came in a little late, you can all, like, there will never be a shortage of people that will take your money to be your mommy and daddy, period. They'll charge you $600 a month. They'll charge you for their book. They'll charge you for their fucking anything at all to be your mommy and daddy. So once you connect to the fact that, like, you're responsible for yourself, your mommy and daddy are people that fucked one time, like, you're really free, you know? To like, I mean, I have like a lot of, I'm looking at my library right now. I've got like kind of a diverse collection here. You can get perspective on how other people think. Like the 48 Laws of Power was very helpful for me to understand how people think that are nothing like me. But at the end of the day, like, don't give people money to like cultivate discipline for you, because ultimately it's getting in the way of you cultivating discipline.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I said the other day that discipline is for slaves, because what I was really saying is discipline often requires a lot of mental Olympics and gymnastics to fucking pull it off. And so essentially what you're doing is you're creating a false idol in order to compel yourself to work. Whereas these other motherfuckers are just compelled by a spiritual force that's not discernible. That's why I'm saying, like, everybody has a higher calling. Not everybody has a higher calling. I think that's the grand epiphany. Is like some people just don't have it. and that's fucking fine. Like not everyone has it.
No, I agree with you. And I think that's why I like the emphasis in your writing about building a body of work, because like regardless of what you're doing, regardless of what sort of cards you're dealt in life, you can always build a body of work. Like if you want to become a woodworker tomorrow, you can fucking suck at it and build a body of work getting better at it. Like there's never going to be a shortage of trade jobs. Like you don't have to like be passionate about the thing that you are into. You can be passionate about like the surfing you do after, but like you do have to find something that like genuinely drives you from the heart if you want to be successful, I think. But
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think that's the only way to live. Yeah, I appreciate
oh,
that.
no problem. Thanks for having the space. I always like these.
We got our boy Humanoid.
Hey, what's up? I just thought of a term that I love that you might like too. It's called the self-help treadmill, where essentially you just keep going and going and going with no real goal. The only goal is to improve yourself. It's like in the esoteric health community, people be detoxing their entire lives. They say, I need a detox, a detox, and detox. But that ain't really based at all.
Right on, brother.
Peace.
Omar, give me a zinger, man. Give me a good question.
Hey, Brew, I just wanted to let you know, I'm a big fan of all your writings and tweets. One of the questions that I had was, what does your name mean to you? Brute the Force on Twitter.
It's just a portmanteau of brute force, which is essentially the idea that most things in my life I've been able to overcome just through sheer force of will. And yeah, I just added the D because it's just it's an interesting kind of spin on it to say brute of force instead of brute force. But yeah, man, most things in my life have been solvable through sheer force of will.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. And what is Benjamin Franklin Disrespecter on your butt? What does that
I'm
mean?
talking about money.
Okay, sweet.
Yep, zero respect for money.
Do you have
We
any?
got Beckett.
Do you have any
We got
opinions on like drinking as like a way for people to escape their reality, and it's like I've heard people talk about it's like coming home from work and someone just they grab the bottle and it's like just to drown out everything that they went through for the day. And like what is like it's such a like old human like behavior for drinking like for thousands of years. So I was just like, what do you think drives humans to like kind of basically poison themselves to quote unquote relieve stress?
I can't answer that question for other people, but I can answer it for myself. I'm in a game, high stakes gambling, where being whip smart and sharp at all times is extremely fucking tantamount. So I cannot afford to be in altered states of consciousness, especially when I'm launching large sums of money. So I am a control freak. That's why I don't do any mind altering substances, because I just want to be in control of my reality at all time. I have zero desire to escape from the reality that I'm in. I also read a passage by Jung a long time ago that articulated this very well for me. He said something to the effect of that men drink to become women and women drink to become men. And I find that that's very true. Any man that I've seen who gets himself piss drunk becomes emotional and vulnerable like a woman. And women who drink typically become very masculine. And so I think that I think it's a way of people essentially trying to get out of the rigmarole of their daily life, and they're basically crossing over and experimenting with a different reality, which I have no interest in doing that. But again, dude, like you wanna fucking talk about like subsets. Like you got dudes on here who think that hard alcohol is superior to beer, and they say beer is soy. It's actually not true at all. Even from a biological perspective, like if you want to look at like hard alcohol is just sheer poison. There's like absolutely there's no power in hard alcohol whatsoever. It just slows down your recovery. You got to sleep more, fucks up your workouts. But beer, fucking power lifters, strong men, Vikings, like motherfuckers, if you drink beer, I mean, there's glucose in there. So that's going to fill your muscle bellies with glycogen post workout. So, like, I know a lot of strong, beastie motherfuckers who will go lift hard and then fucking have a steak and a beer. And that shit's anabolic as fuck. But hard alcohol is catabolic. That shit literally has zero fucking benefits whatsoever other than just absolutely fucking poisoning your bloodstream and slowing down your recovery. So I think fucking hard alcohol is soy. And I think beer is the superior instrument, especially if you're very physical. If you're a very physically active male and you're fucking drinking beer, that's an anabolic fucking drug, especially when it's combined with a superior diet.
Thank you for that information, bro. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Right on, man. Yeah, so this is a good segue off what you said. You said when you were reading Young in the past, you had a different perspective on that than self-help books. When you're approaching reading philosophy like Nietzsche or Rumi or authors like that, how are you approaching that as far as a learning perspective if you're not looking necessarily for self-help?
Language. I'm interested in reading those books for the vocabulary and the syntax and the way that these motherfuckers are articulating their thoughts. That's the value in it for me. The value in it is not for my ideas, because I have found that if you live a free, self-directed life, you're going to come across all the great insights that all the great authors wrote about anyway. That's been my experience. Like, I get a lot of dudes in my DMs who try to compare my work. They're like, dude, this is Nietzschean or this is fucking Spinozan or whatever. I don't really know the underpinnings of a lot of those philosophies. But I do find it interesting that people will draw parallels from my work to some things that other great men have said. And it's just from living. It's like, if you live long enough and you do enough things, you're just going to come across those insights naturally. So
Right.
I'm just more interested in the language and the structure and the way that these guys are articulating their thoughts.
Interesting. Yeah, because at the end of the day, the principles that underlie a lot of these things just happen to you if you're living, if you're at least approaching and attacking life.
Exactly, because all epiphanies come like a bolt from the blue. That's just the reality. Every grand epiphany, every grand proclamation that's ever hit my fucking psyche has just come by accident. It's like writer's block. You're sitting there and you're trying to fucking force these incredible opinions, and it never comes because those things are designed to be elusive. Most of the goodness in life is designed to be elusive. And it's elusive in nature because life is a quest, and you have to go out and fucking show your chest in order to kind of glean these insights. I don't think sitting there and trying, like, these guys, like these fucking intellectual dudes who've written these great works and had these great insights, the energy expenditure that they had to fucking do to come up with that shit just from inside their head is incredible. Like, that's why I'm more into guys like Ernst Younger, who wrote like Storm of Steel, like motherfuckers who were actually in the heat of battle or in the heat of fire, in the crossfire. And then they built a conjoined philosophy built upon that. I like guys who have been in the fucking trenches and experienced a lot of shit and draw their philosophy from that. The actual just like base thinkers who sat in a cabin with like roasted chestnuts and fucking roaring fucking fireplaces, those guys I don't really connect with.
Yeah.
Even though I can respect the fact that they generated some incredible thoughts, I would rather fucking put my energy in the physical. I have a very strong belief that the physical plane is the most important plane for men to battle on. Like, there has to be. It kind of goes back to my whole thing of like, how can a guy claim enlightenment if he's broke and has no temporal power? It's like, to me, that's not an enlightened individual. I don't give a fuck how much internal you've explored. If you don't have some proof that you've etched yourself in stone or carved something with your physicality, I think that's a big mistake. And it's like, look, man, like, there's a reason why posthumously, like in death, warriors, gangsters, and fucking like guys like big wave surfers get way more respect post death than a guy like Steve Jobs. Like, it was wild to me when Steve Jobs died. No one really gave a fuck. Like, it wasn't really the shock wave through the culture that you thought it would be. But then, like, you get a guy like Tupac, or you get a fucking big wave surfer who goes down under the toe, you know, like living his fate and destiny. Those guys get a lot more reverence, and they're more venerable when they die. Because my whole point is, I think there has to be some grand conflict resolution with the physical world in order to really truly garner that reverence and have that immortality in your work. Like, yeah, Steve Jobs arguably obviously had way more impact than these guys, but people are more interested in the Tupac story. They're more interested in the fucking Mark Fu story, because these are guys who were going up against the forces of nature rather than just being a fucking tech dork in their fucking apartment.
Right. And I guess it does depend on like what scale of time you're looking at it on, because somebody like Steve Jobs, maybe in a longer historical period, may be written about more. The impact may be looked from that viewpoint. But with somebody like Tupac, or with a big wave surfer, as you made, what we're seeing is the active manifestation of losing somebody who's making us question nature.
Exactly. And they also went down. They went down.
Doing what they love.
They died doing what they actually loved, which is like, there's some sort of majestic. There's a very majestic quality to that. Like truly, one of my favorite stories is Mark Fu was that big wave surfer who got rocked at Mavericks, which was like I want to say it was like an 80-foot wave. But dude, I mean, like, honestly, that's the definition, in my opinion, of a beautiful death. I mean, the guy went down doing exactly what he fucking loved to do, and I think there's some fucking glory in that for sure. I think, this leads me to a lot of different fucking conclusions, but I think that most people are under the impression that death is not a gruesome process, and that it's just everybody's gonna die with their gray hairs on the fucking pillow, like in a blanket comfortably, and that's just not the case. Most death is very gruesome. Most death is extremely fucking painful. And I think preparing for death is a very large mistake in a lot of ways. Like, I think there has to be some sort of fearlessness and confrontation with the possibility of death in whatever it is that you're doing.
Well, the preparation of death may be outside of preparing for your family and passing down money or means in order to be able, or wisdom in order for them to be able to live more fulfilled lives. Other than that, the preparation of death is contradictory to life, because if you are fearing the thing that is going to end creation of yourself, or how you manifest yourself in the world, then you've already stopped yourself in your tracks.
Correct.
In my opinion.
It's this completely absurd thing in the West, man. We fucking we fucking have these very sanitized, strange like rooms where everyone fucking gathers around. It's like, that's not the way most people are gonna go out. And we have to get like people like I ride motorcycles, and people are always like, dude, aren't you scared of dying? And I'm like, dude, like, me riding a motorcycle is the ultimate freedom, because ultimately what I'm doing is I'm giving the middle finger to the possibility of death, but I'm also celebrating the fullness of life. And I feel like that's a very delicate balance that a lot of people don't really get to experience. And so I'm just about the celebration of life without the pretense of worrying about what the catastrophe could possibly be, because that's honestly what a fulfilling, satisfying life is to me.
Yeah, if you've ever been cliff jumping or gone with somebody cliff jumping, the person can be deadly afraid, can have all these objections, and if they get up to the cliff and jump versus the person who gets up and walks away, on the other side of that, there's a completely different feeling and a completely different energy that comes from either of those people. So I think it's a great example of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, brother.
For sure, man.
Use. What's up, man?
What's going on? Currently glistening in sweat on the treadmill, but I wanted to ask you, because I believe you touched on this on a previous space. There seems to be this like whole rise of coaching. That's the new thing now. And I believe you touched on it briefly in a previous space, where you said, like, if you get a coach too early or at the wrong time, it could like mess up your, I don't know, edge. Could you kind of elaborate on that? Because I believe you touched on it.
Yeah, bro. Is there any way you can actually speak up? I didn't hear the last part of that question.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the treadmill right now. Can you hear me now?
That's a little better. Just ask the last part. I missed the last 5 seconds.
Yeah, you just touched on like if you get a coach at the wrong time or too early, it's going to kind of mess with your progression and developing your own attributes and proclivities. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's like you go to a like a soul cycle class. You have like boxing classes. You have all these like I want to say these classes that are geared towards the common person. And what they do is they bring you into these group settings and they homogenize you. They melt you down and make you your technique like everybody else. As like sort of like a blueprint to build off that. And I don't believe that's a good way to build efficiency or skill whatsoever, because I understand in my own life that my quirks and deficits and character defects have actually gotten me a lot further than my talent, if that makes sense. So like my particular this is why I tweeted the other day. It kind of segues perfect into this. I said good habits will get you 80% of the way to success, and then the last 20% to success, the capstone, relies on bad habits. Meaning, there's a lot of habits that I have that if another person tried to copy that habit, they would absolutely fucking get shattered against the wall because it just works for me. It's a tick. It's a fucking quagmire. It's just something that I've been able to incorporate that just makes me sort of unique. And everybody has those. Everybody has those pitfalls and deficits and quirks that if they're integrated into the overarching talent and skill set you have, it takes you to the next level. But you find, and this is a perfect answer to you, is that the self-help industry is hell-bent on helping you remove those bad habits that essentially are your edge. Those things sharpen your blade and make you stand out from the pack. And if you melt those things down and you make them a dull butter knife, guess what? You're just like every other motherfucker. So my particular quirks have been the most beneficent forces in my life, because I'm able to do things other people can't do because I hold on to those things. I have zero desire to get rid of the particular bad habits that I've been able to incorporate into the good things that I do. It's kind of like it's juxtaposition, dude. Life is all about juxtaposition. Everything is about contrast and paradox. You know what I mean? Like I'm a fucking elite athlete. I'm in elite shape, but I can smoke cigarettes because I do everything else right in my life. So I don't feel the malaise. Cigarettes don't bring me down. You could call that a bad habit. You could call it a quirk, but it works for me. So I think people need to find the juxtaposition in their life, the elements and forces that should make no sense on paper, but if you combine those things, it creates a very combustible engine that you're able to do things that ordinary people cannot do because it's a holistic approach. I am very anti constituent. I don't believe in modular processes where you're just sort of breaking things down on an individual level. I have a very holistic approach to life. And that's why I believe you need the darkness and the light. You need the innocence and you know what I mean? Like you need to combine all of those things in order to be a complete person. And if you start neglecting or start trying to take scalpels and incise these things that you don't like about yourself, you're just on that self-help treadmill that other guy talked about. It's like men for thousands of years, just whatever hand they were dealt, they just threw it on their shoulders and soldiered on. Like that's just what they did in the pre-modern world. There was no institutions, there were no safety nets to catch men when they fell. They had to work with their instincts and they had to work with their faults and they had to continue to move on. And so I think like the biggest trapping of the modern society is there's so many institutions that are set up that will help you exit the game. If things just get too hard or you're in a rut or you're stuck, you can just say goodbye. I'm checking out of the game. I'm going to go check into rehab. I'm going to go check into a fucking institution for 3 months, clear my head. Like there's just so many ways to exit the fucking game. And so I think people utilize these things, and it's funny because it's actually perpetuated the mental health crisis. Because think about it this way: men the actual reason men even have the time and wherewithal to do all this spiritual self-help reflective work, you got dudes doing like hot yoga, doing these like deep internal dives on who they are and trying to fucking go back in their past and rummage through shit and figure out why they are the way they are. The only reason why that possibility exists is because women are in the workforce. Women are holding down society, so now men can go exit the game and do this little fucking self-help reflective work, because women are fucking stepping up, taking 2 jobs. Women are in the workforce, so now men can just depart and do all this shit. But in a just society, in a real society, in the natural order, men didn't have time. You didn't have time to exit the workforce and do this. You didn't have the luxury to fucking journal a million times a day. And that's why they were a lot more mentally healthy than us, because the pressure was there and men respond very well to pressure. And when you take away the pressure of a man and you give him the out and you say, you know what, dude, take 5 months off of work. You're having a mental health crisis. No problem. Go see a fucking therapist. Go thumb through all these books. What you find is that these men get more and more mentally ill, because men are afflictors. Men are designed to afflict onto the world. We're thrusters. We thrust our life force into the world, not the other way around. And a lot of these men are just bending over and basically just taking it up the ass. I mean, that's just honestly what it is. It's a crude example, but it's just what's happening. So I just don't believe in, I don't believe for men in exit strategies. And I see the coaching thing as sort of a cheap way of getting around sort of that autodidactic life force nature that men have of learning things on their own. You go into a class and now you're just going to learn the way that this person's doing it, just like everybody else. So now where's the outlier? There isn't one, because everyone's fucking cardio kickboxing doing the same shit. But where's the style? Where's the flair? Like, style is very important. The style in which you do things is arguably more important than what you're actually saying and what you're actually doing. I fully believe that. And I don't think that's superficial. I think style is actually a huge part of life, and I think it's a huge part of being a man. So it's like the way you go about doing things is the most important way. So then why would I outsource my style to a coach? Doesn't make any fucking sense. I would go to a coach when I've learned enough of something on my own, and then I would have them polish out and round those corners at the end of the game, not before the game has started.
One more thing to add. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
I know that you mentioned the sort of autodidactic way of thinking, and I know you mentioned there's kind of like this return of the Renaissance man, a return of like return of the polymath. Do you feel like that sort of combination of being good at a lot of things and kind of the new self-help of teaching yourself a lot of things and applying them in new ways instead of doing what everybody else is doing and kind of just specializing on one thing?
Yes, it goes back to the juxtaposition. Like, if you want to be a noteworthy man in this society now, you definitely have, your body of work has to be commodious. Like, there has to be a lot of things that you're drawing inspiration from. You know what I mean? Like I always use the example in my own life, like high stakes gambler, Olympic lifter. There's a lot of things in my life that are juxtaposed. It really shouldn't make too much sense, but when I combine those elements, I'm able to draw sort of this curriculum from whatever it is that I'm doing. And so I do urge dudes to expose themselves to a lot of fucking different things. I don't think specialization has a future here. What's your take on that, actually?
I think specialization is dying, because if you look at all the things that are popping up right now, for example, it's the intersection of a lot of trends. So, for example, you'll see a guy he has a finance background and a tech background and a real estate background, and that's like the new thing. I don't think specialization is going to work anymore, especially if you're doing your own thing. It's much better to be 8 out of 10 at like 3 or 4 things instead of 10 out of 10 at one thing. And I think that math actually checks out if you apply like the Pareto principle, because to go from working competence all the way up to mastery takes so long. You can get working competence in like a few months, but mastery takes years. So I feel like if you get working competence in 3 or 4 functional areas, you can really start innovating things, because innovation happens sort of at that crossroads between multiple industries, and that's where you get that sort of unique edge.
100%, because it makes you broad. But I also think the Pareto principle is accelerated. I don't think it's actually a true 80-20 anymore. I think time has accelerated so rapidly that I almost believe it's like a 95-5% now. Like 5% of motherfuckers are going to have everything, and that 95 is going to get left in the dust. So I think,
100%.
yeah, that shit is accelerating at a rapid fucking rate.
Good stuff, man. That's all for me. I appreciate you hosting the space.
Yep. Reyes, what's popping? All right, let's get on Diogenes. Diogenes, talk to us.
Hey, Brood, can you hear me?
What's up, brother?
I wanted to ask you about rumination and when you're ruminating on something, like, for example, if you're gambling or trading and a loss is killing you and you keep thinking about it over and over and over, what is that, like, what's the signal of that? What is your mind trying to tell you, and how do you stop that process from happening even though you know it's not helping you?
Yeah, so it's that what that is it's cleaving onto the past, right?
Yes.
You take a loss and you want to clutch and cleave on and wish that things were different than they were. I think the true masculine imperative, which we talk about a lot, is accepting things for where they are and understanding that you always have to make the next right move regardless of whatever the fuck's happening. So it's like, no matter what kind of turmoil or chaos or what the fuck has happened, there's still the next right move right in front of you. And I think guys fail to really understand that regardless of the outcome, you do just have to continue to put fucking baby steps in front of the other and do the next right thing. Even if it's something simple as getting a fucking hearty meal, taking a fucking nap, like the next right fucking move is still there on the table. And I don't have the capacity to give a fuck about what happened 5 minutes ago. I think instrumental amnesia is is a skill that should be exalted in this culture, because too many people are obsessed wishing for circumstances that are just simply not true. And I have zero desire to wish for things to be other than what they actually are. I like to confront reality as it currently is. That's basically my fucking model. So I just don't. I understand that when I've sustained a loss, that's not coming back. But I do also understand that if I make the next right move, and string those sequences together, that things are gonna fucking pan out. That's just been my experience. So,
Thank you.
but
Hello?
also, man, thinking is extremely valuable in retrospect. I don't think thinking is very valuable. Uh, like thinking is valuable post hoc for sure. Like there's things that I'll ruminate and look back on years later that make sense to me now, but in the moment they didn't make any sense. There's no clarity there. And I think things clarify themselves when you understand that you're constantly changing the interpretation of your past. Like the present is constantly changing the meaning of the past. So the past is malleable. I don't think the future is nearly as malleable as the past is, because when you and this is like a whole fucking ontology that I'm experimenting with, but like I have this gut feeling that something like forgiveness, like a concept of forgiveness, I think forgiveness is bullshit. No one's been able to really articulate what the fuck forgiveness really is, or what it really even means. It's a very abstract way of dealing with reality. Like I don't know anybody who there's no way to get rid of the past either. That's kind of like the whole bailiwick of the whole situation, is like the past is here to stay, and it can be changed and it can be reinterpreted for sure. But I don't really think that these sort of postmodern Christian concepts of forgiveness, turn the other cheek, I don't think those are real things. Like people, I think, misconstrue forgetting with forgiveness, or just like forgetting about what happened, and they think that they've forgiven the process. I don't really understand the mechanism of it, but it's a very fascinating thing to me, because I just have a feeling it's all bullshit. And I think that kind of plays into what you're talking about. You're talking about like trying to forgive the past. I don't think that's a real thing. I think people have chips on their shoulders, and I think people absolutely are motivated and have impetus and moxie based on the things that have happened to them. I don't think those things just magically go away. And I think we can pretend all fucking day that we've forgiven, and a lot of times we really haven't. So I just think it's important to wrestle with these forces and just try to come to as much truth as possible. That was a good question.
Yeah, I appreciate your answer, and I think also it plays into thinking about what you said before about this subconscious conviction that the best is yet to come. So even when you lost, a nauseating amount gambling like that, I found that very fascinating to learn about when you specifically said how much you've lost, because I don't think people might realize. People see the wins; they don't realize what the loss feels like, and most people can't handle that.
No, for sure. Most motherfuckers would have committed suicide with the amount of money that's burned through my hands throughout my life. But my identity is not strapped to money. That's my whole thing. Is like my identity. I just enjoy playing the game, and I like to win for sure. But I understand loss is a part of that. But in no way, shape, or form am I hitched to money, to stats. To like none of those things really matter to me. I'm like, dude, it's fucking interesting to me. Like I look back at my life and I'm like, why the fuck did I push myself so hard in the gym to be as strong as possible? Like, why was that I was just compelled to do it. Like I had to show up to the gym every day and put in that kind of work. And I came to the conclusion that it was because if I did get everything stripped away from me, I could still wake up in the morning and still have my own vigor. Like I would have my virility and my vigor and my ferociousness. And like those are the only things that I prize. Like I just like knowing the fact that no matter what the fuck happens to me in my life, I'm waking up as a very strong, capable man every morning. So I don't look at anything in my life that can fucking destabilize me because I have that body of work. I have that sort of structure that I've built over the years, and nobody can take that away from me. You can take my possessions, you can burn my house down, you can bomb my M5. I really don't give a fuck because I'll just go get it back. But one thing you can never take away from me is myself, because I've put myself through enough crucibles and gauntlets, and I just have that unwavering confidence because I've been able to be triumphant over every circumstance that's ever come my way. I have a lot of past experience to call upon. You know what I mean? Like I've just overcome things that I believe would absolutely bring an ordinary man down to their fucking knees. And I've done it so many times that it's almost addicting. Like that's why I've had tweets before where I'm like, I've been through hell so many times that at some point I'm like a fucking Rottweiler and I got to put a leash on myself because I want to go back to hell sometimes so badly because there's so much insight and wisdom there that now as I've gotten older and I've matured, I really got to hold myself back from subjecting myself to unnecessary pain and unnecessary drama because there's just so much to fucking gain from it.
So I think I speak for everyone here, and we would want to know: was it always like that, though, or was there a period where like you lost a ton, or you made some massive mistake, and it wasn't like that, and you did feel like killing yourself? Like what was the shift, if there was one?
No, dude, I have the opposite. Like I have mania. I don't really have the depressive side of life at all. I wake up with a zealousness and a zeal towards life every morning. It's very hard to calm down my energy. And I don't know if that's just a gift from the gods or if that fire has been stoked from some ulterior force. I really don't. There's no like ready apprehension I have of what that force really is, but I just wake up every day with this just unrelenting optimism that I can do whatever the fuck I want to do. But it's also because I'm self-directed. It's also because I've been saying, thinking, articulating my thoughts in the way that I've wanted to for well over a decade now. Nobody tells me what to do. I'm telling other motherfuckers what to do in my life. Like I work with people who are getting my delegation. And so it's like when you're a self-directed, self-contained individual, and you're able to speak, act, behave in the ways that you truly want to, the liberation and emancipation from that is absolutely what kind of builds the fabric of the philosophy that I'm talking about. Like I wouldn't have the strength to come back from the losses that I've endured if I also concomitantly didn't have the strength to speak, behave, act, talk the way that I want to as well. Does that make sense? Like I'm not wearing any masks. I fucking say whatever the fuck I want to say. No one can cancel me. I work for myself. So I think like a huge weakness in people is that if you can't behave and think and act and talk in the way that you want to, there's a very interesting limitation in also your ability to withstand pressure and and kind of brave through the gauntlets of life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like that's your starting point if you want to be a self-directed man. Like people don't understand, like just living with like a hunter's predator's mentality is a viable life path. Like you can have purpose in being aimless is what I've always said. Like you can just wake up every morning like a fucking vagabond, go around driving around town, going from venue to venue, coffee shops, whatever. But then you have to be able to capitalize on opportunities that just spring up by serendipity. Like there's a lot of fortuitous events that will take place just from going around, roving around town. Like that's my life story. I run into the most bizarre characters, opportunities, deals that come my way just from fucking roaming around town aimlessly. I don't know where the fuck I'm going. I don't know. I don't fucking plan my day. I'm just fucking soaring through life, and I'll fucking capitalize on an opportunity if I see one. So that goes back to the whole identity shift thing. I think a lot of guys are afraid to live that way because they don't really believe that they can capitalize on events, or they don't really know how to commoditize that or make a living out of it. But like plenty of people have done that. Plenty of people are just living aimlessly with purpose. So thank you.
Thank you, Bert.
Hello, I think my speaker is working this time around.
Yeah, Reyes, what's up, man?
All right, thanks a lot for your patience, man. I truly appreciate your time and the talk. I was wondering if you could please elaborate on how carving your imperfections can destroy your masculine edge. I know there's ladies in the chat, but I'm speaking for the dudes here. I'd like, how does your imperfections, how can it destroy your masculine edge? Why does it do damage to whatever intrinsic traits you may have, even if you don't know them?
You're talking about sloughing off the imperfections that I was talking about earlier, like being hell bent on kind of removing like character defects and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're intrinsically lazy or you're intrinsically lackadaisical about your everyday life. Like how does that how does like carving that off like destroy your edge? Your edge meaning what makes you, what makes you stand out from the rest of the crowd, what makes motherfuckers look at you and be like, oh no, this dude is different.
Because perfectionists don't win anything. Like perfectionists just don't win. They never hit the send button. They're always editing. They're always fucking trying to have the perfect craft, the perfect fucking image before they do anything. And I've never seen a perfectionist win. I've never seen a perfectionist get glory. I've seen people who are shameless. Shameless motherfuckers are winning the whole game right now. Look at the whole battleground of life, the winning products. You don't even need a good product anymore to win. That's what's so sad about the whole fucking culture. You don't need a good product. You just need impetus and moxie behind it, and you need to fucking triple down, and you can push anything. You can peddle anything in this culture, which is why motherfuckers who actually have good products and are dispelling good information are slowly rising to a height that nobody else can achieve. But like, my point is, dude, is dumb shit is winning all around us right now. And the people who are releasing the dumb shit that's making tons of money and making them successful have a fucking ton of character flaws. That's why the products are dumb. They're not even releasing anything fucking of value. And motherfuckers are gobbling it up because it shows you the power of just unleashing something and not being afraid to send it. That's just what it is, dude. Like, there's motherfuckers on this platform that are shamelessly producing absolute garbage and nonsense, but they do it with such moxie and impetus that it's a very alluring product. So it goes back to style, like I'm talking about. Style has a lot of rough edges to it. Flair has a lot of rough edges to it. But those things can be overlooked. Like you can break a lot of social contracts if you do things in style. You see this all the time. Like if you do things in a humorous manner, you can get away with saying a lot of things that you couldn't ordinarily say if you wrap things up neatly in a joke, let's say. So things like that is kind of more what I'm talking about, man. Is like it's all about the style in which you're doing things. Does that make sense?
No, brother, that makes perfect sense. I'm just trying to come at peace with myself at
Everybody
trying
wants
to do that.
everybody wants the most intelligent, perfect, brilliant, magnificent magnum opus before they release anything. And that's just what's cucked everybody to the nth degree because they're just getting lapped and destroyed and demolished by motherfuckers who don't care about that. It's just you have to just pick something and just fucking run with the fucking wind, but you can't stop. That's the thing is like look at these guys like Tate who have catapulted themselves. Like Tate's a fucking workhorse. That dude just fucking is just pumping content constantly. And a lot of it's really good shit. But he's just a fucking workhorse. The guy's just unleashing monumental pieces of work prolifically. And there's a lot of guys who aren't willing to do that. You got dudes tweeting once a fucking week, wondering why they have no money in their bank accounts because they're trying to articulate and flesh out the perfect thing before they release it. None of these successful motherfuckers care about that. They're just going to fucking shoot from the hip and they're going to keep going and going and going and going until something breaks. That's how the game really works. Dumb shit is winning. You know why? Because it's all in the style in which it's being done.
Basically, fanning the hammer on life itself.
Yeah, and I don't have a moral or ethical dilemma with that. I'm a laissez-faire motherfucker. I believe in a free market. I believe that we should be unleashing as much dumb fucking shit into the fucking atmosphere as possible. Truly, because if you are consuming and buying that content, I 100% put that on you. I'm not susceptible to it. I ain't buying dumb products because I'm inoculated against the bullshit. I can see through a fucking grifter in fucking 2 seconds. I've seen it all. But like, I'm just saying, like, I totally believe in a free market. So I believe that we should be unleashing as much demented, retarded shit as possible into the fucking atmosphere because it's going to accelerate the correction. It's gonna level things out eventually where everybody realizes they've just been purchasing hot air and nothing really came of all this. And then there's going to be a massive market correction force where truth and authenticity is really going to be able to shine through. But it's got to get a lot worse before it gets better. So let these motherfuckers run rampant. I don't give a fuck about the grifters pushing all this bullshit. Let it happen. It's all going to fucking level itself out. It always does. I'm going to move on. Michael Mello, what's up, bro?
What's up, Brute? Thank you for having me. You've mentioned a lot about the dark and the light, and on the topic of self-help, I believe this is the number one thing that's wrong with the West. If you look at cultures in the East where they have, that yin yang philosophy, you take the good with the bad, you just accept the way the world as it is, and you compare it to the West where everybody is just trying to be, this image that you mentioned, this perfection, this magnus opus before they release anything. I think that has, decalibrated the threat and risk awareness of people, especially when it comes to the biggest threats that you have, which are your own internal shortcomings and your own character flaws, or not flaws, or just the things that are holding you back. So my question is, how would somebody who is, caught up in this culture of, posting these good morning, life is beautiful platitudes, or, acting like if positivity implies ignoring the things that you need to work on, how do you take somebody like that and you recalibrate their thinking so that they can embrace the parts of them that need work and also embrace, every challenge and tribulation that they've gone through, since these same challenges and tribulations are what turns you into what you are. How would you put into effect or create that snowball effect where somebody goes from that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be rosy and beautiful, into this duality where they embrace the things that are fucked up, for the future of their self-development?
See, it's the least. I'm the least interested in helping that particular demographic because I do think those guys are a lost cause in many ways, and I also have a suspicion that it's all about pussy, like those guys that are pretending to be bubbly, fucking happy-go-lucky motherfuckers all day. I literally think that's a fucking pussy strategy. I think they're trying to get women that way by pretending like they're fucking some spiritual fairy. I think it's couched in. I think everything is couched in sexuality, obviously, but I'm just saying that I think that particular strategy is more about being seen as like a virtuous man. But like those guys are the first dudes to backstab you. Like those guys are the first dudes who have zero fucking loyalty. Like the most loyal motherfuckers I've ever met in my life, the dudes who will step up and do anything for you, are the people who came from real fucked up households and childhoods. That's just the reality of it. It's because they understand that loyalty was a survivor instinct. And so they've cultivated that. Like those guys, dude, I just don't, I have a very, very difficult time ascertaining how they came to the conclusion that ignoring the dark forces of life is valuable in any way, shape, or form. When my experience has been the exact opposite. Nothing has been more compelling and inspiring than negativity. Like I don't mind subjecting myself to negativity at all, because I view that as deadlifts for my mind. It's just going to make my mind stronger. Like I don't understand the aversion to that whatsoever.
Gotcha. Thank you, man.
Yep. Justin,
Yo, what's going on, brother?
what's up, man?
So, I actually think I could add a little bit to Michael's question. Because, Brute, in contrast to you, at least relative to what you're saying, I've had a relatively charmed life. And I have no shame in admitting that. Because just like your experience is what has made you who you are, my experiences, of course, made me who I am. That being said, I wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment that you cannot deny or pretend as if the darker forces or the negative forces of both life and oneself don't exist. Additionally, I think the one who not only acknowledges but embraces and learns to channel those energies gains massive power that the majority of people just will never even recognize or realize. And
Massive power.
absolutely, yeah.
Because it turns you, because dude, what it does is it turns you can't be bullshitted. When you've experimented with every force in the universe, you can see things coming before they happen. That's like the gift of being a man, is at some point you've seen so much and you've been exposed to so much in life that you no longer are able to be bullshitted. People can't pull one over on you
Right.
anymore. And that's a beautiful place to be, because that's also happens to be the most attractive quality to women. Women above all else, man, they want to know that they can't bullshit you. They want to know that they cannot pull one over on you or manipulate you. And if you are a man who has a grasp of all those forces in the universe and that understanding, then it makes you an incredible communicator. Like I break down things with women all the time. Like I explain to them why they're behaving the way they're behaving. And even if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. I have the balls to unleash my theory as to why they're behaving the way they are. And like that thing is extremely powerful for men as well. Like you want to be the one in the family that everybody comes to for advice, wisdom. Like who's the one they seek out when they're going through a jam? It's the guy who's battled the dark forces and the light. It's never just the happy-go-lucky bubbly guy. No one gives a fuck about that guy's opinion. Everybody cares about the man who's been through everything, who's seen it all.
Agreed fully. And I also think it subverts the way in which the experience is internalized. Everybody listening, if you've gone through something that's difficult, and I recognize that many people have gone through difficulties that I have not experienced myself. Things like losing a loved one or getting, terminally ill, or things that are just terrible to happen to anyone and befall anybody. But if you can find ways in which you can look at that experience and understand how it can teach you and what it has to add as far as value is concerned, and how it can make you a stronger, better, more refined individual. Like you said, Brute, like you have that proclivity and tendency to want to go back to hell because you recognize inherently the wisdom and the lessons that can be found there. I think that will fundamentally change forever your relationship with any perceived negative experience, because I also know that everyone listening to the space has gone through something that was difficult at a time. And now in the present, they look back on that experience and probably relish in what it had to give them in gifts. I've always said that pain is not something that anyone enjoys experiencing. Or rather, maybe I can't say that because there is like relishing battle, right? But pain is one of the greatest teachers that exists, if not the greatest teacher that exists. So to kind of add, Michael, to your question, I think part of the root, or rather one of the biggest benefits that you can gain, is subverting your relationship with that which you perceive as negative as being something that is, detrimental and like God spiting you, so to speak, versus how can this become a teacher, and how can I as the student learn and implement what I'm being taught through this experience.
Definitely. I think a lot of guys also confuse suffering with growth, which is definitely not true. A lot of guys are suffering needlessly, and they're masochistic, and they're indulging in things that are intentionally harmful and destructive, and they think that they're actually getting benefit from that. And I think that's false. I think there has to be a natural suffering. It just sort of like on the path, you're going to just confront things that just have to be dealt with. And I think that a lot of guys confuse suffering with growth, which I don't find to be true at all. I think it's a cop out. I think a lot of guys like will intentionally burn their life down as a way of just copping out, and I think that's like a very prevalent thing.
I totally agree, dude. I served in the military, and I met a lot of personality types like that. Guys that were just, it's almost like they were eager to jump in on a grenade and come back draped in the flag. I saw that a lot.
Yep, right into the buzzsaw. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. The Arena Manifesto. What's going on? All right, Dan, we'll take you, bro. Dan, the judge.
I had an insight once, and I'll quote it as I had it written. But regarding the darkness and suffering and pain and all that, and the value that's hidden in it. So all knowledge is darkness, or at least hidden in darkness. That's how it seems to me. All knowledge is darkness, and the way to access it is to shine light on that darkness. Now the problem is with this woke and awake and aware culture, new age, self-help, all that, is that you only focus on the light and you totally disregard darkness. So it's like only the side of the light, but you forgot to shine that light on the darkness to get to finally know yourself and what we are even talking about. What do you say about that?
Your connection's hella fucked up, bro. You sound like you're in an echo chamber. I can't hear you. I'm gonna just take another question for now, bro, but try to sort that out. I think you got to get off speakerphone. James, what's
Hey,
up?
Brute. Thanks for having me, brother. I had a question in regards to raising a son. I've done really well for myself. I, had hard circumstances growing up, and obviously, that really benefited me later on in life. But I guess my concern is that because I've done so well for myself, that my son won't have to go through similar things. So I was just wondering if you had any advice on, how to take him through that journey of becoming a man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm under the belief system that men should not be like domesticated in any kind of way. So I think that in the context of a family, I think that men do need to step out for a long period of time and continue to work on their mission and shit. I think men are more like role models. I don't. It's a good question, man. I wrestle with it too. I just feel that the only way you can fucking lead is by example, and that there's absolutely zero way to like I believe we have children so they can have their own unique experience. I don't think we should clone our children and try to make them anything like us. And so I like my whole thing with my son is that I want him to just sort of be whoever the fuck he wants to be. I want to expose him to a lot of different things. So like some guys just don't want to be fucking sensations in life, like, and that's fine. And like I've just kind of accepted that. Like I in no way, shape, or form am I trying to build a fucking clone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I guess I don't know if you feel this way, and I totally understand your perspective about people being themselves and having their own human experience. But maybe it's just a part of, I don't know, being a dad is you want your son to be wealthier than you, be more successful than you, or at least certainly I have that desire. But I understand your perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I definitely believe in fucking giving them instruments and tools to be successful. Like I don't believe in being stingy with our kids at all. I think that's just retarded. But I also do believe that there has to be resolution of conflict and denouement, like on their own terms. Like, give you a fucking good example. Like when my son's playing on the playground and there's a conflict with another kid, like my ex will try to fucking get involved and try to fucking like split up the fight, and I've pulled her aside and I was like, look, listen, you got to stop doing that. Like, fighting and conflict resolves everything. Like, you got to let these kids work it out on their own. That's how they fucking learn. And I think that's a metaphor for life. I don't believe in that sort of intervention, unless obviously someone's gonna fucking die or get severely fucking hurt, then I'll step in. But I like just witnessing the sort of natural fucking strength and like seeing what he's made of, like seeing his personality shine through with these conflicts with other kids, especially at a young age. So I think stepping out is actually the more superior form of love, because I'm allowing him to make his own way and push boundaries and figure out who the fuck he is, and giving him an opportunity to stand up for himself. Because daddy and mommy ain't always going to be there in life. And I want him to learn that early, is that sometimes you got to fucking duke out your own battles and figure it out. And if things get so severe, sure, I'll fucking step in and fucking, finish things out if I have to. But I think it's important as a father specifically to let the struggle kind of permeate through our children and allow them to sort of, like I said, like stand up for themselves, and like all those things build confidence. And I know
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
women kind of have the opposite thing. Like, they want to break it up, and they're so protective and shit that they just want to fucking intervene. But what they're doing is they're stifling his potential. They're stifling his ability to learn how to deal with these things on his own. And I think that has long-term negative consequences, particularly in boys. I don't think I would let a daughter be embroiled in those kind of conflicts the same way that I would with a son.
That makes sense. One other question, if you don't mind, like when you're a wealthy man, obviously, you know, the lifestyle that you live, you do whatever you want. Would you give your son access to essentially your lifestyle, or would you, I don't know, not give him access? Like, would you allow him to fly first class with you? Would you allow him to experience everything that you experience, or would you artificially kind of give him some sort of hardships in life during his childhood?
No, 100%. Like, if I'm doing something and he's rocking with me, for sure, I'm just going to give him the best of the best. But I'm also going to leave a lot of wiggle room for him to sort of figure things out on his own, guaranteed. I mean, I'm certainly not going to just hand everything. I've never really seen anybody that was handed everything on a silver platter turn out well. I always see them inevitably fall into some kind of like drug addiction or some kind of self-loathing. There's some kind of like self-harm that just kind of fosters from that philosophy that I've seen just too many times. So I don't think that's the way to go. But yeah, I mean, like I said, like, I think it's more about like teaching the principles of life and like business. Like, my son certainly is never going to be in a public school. I don't want these faggots teaching my son anything, but I would fucking teach him how to fucking run a business. I'd teach him fucking leadership. I would teach him like a lot of other things that school could not do, and then kind of let him fly on his own, because I'm in charge of that. So my point is, as a father, is I think it's important for us to build the curriculum. Like, if you want to, like, I don't think offloading and offsetting education to somebody else is the right move as a dad. Like, I am the educator. I am the fucking educator. Like, I can fucking teach him fucking anything. So, and I will invest the time to do that as he gets older. And that's a great fucking responsibility that I'm willing to bear.
Nice. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it, man.
Yep. BXTS.
Hey, Brute. So earlier in the space, you said that not everything is possible. So I was wondering, how do you reconcile that with shooting for the biggest goals as possible when it comes to business, for example, and having ambition? Does it really just come down to, self-awareness, or is it about making an earnest effort at kind of building the biggest thing you can and then leaving it when you feel like it's not working out? Like, for example, when you were building your venture with, your team of quants and investors, like, how did you realize that it's going to transpire out the way that you envisioned it to? Because right now I'm trying to build a big moonshot venture in another industry, and I'm working on it every day without any expectation of success. But sometimes there's a voice in the back of my head saying, this might be a long shot, and it'll probably be easier to make money doing something simpler, like a simpler business. So I'm just wondering, where do you kind of draw the line on that, and how do you determine that?
Yeah, I mean, I still believe that lofty goals are important because I think failing on a goal is also very acceptable. Like, it's absolutely okay to want to be a world champion and fall short. It's more about who you become in the process of chasing those big goals. That's the silver lining. Is like, who are you going to become when you're testing yourself in these gauntlets? If you fail, so fucking what? If as long as you became a different person on that path, I see silver lining in that. So it's all about just who you've become while you're fucking tackling these things, man. It's not really like achieving things is fucking wonderful for sure. There has to be some element of winning, but I do believe ultimately that falling short can be a gift in many ways.
Got it. So you err on the side of just setting the biggest goals as possible, just for the fact that it's better for personal transformation versus kind of settling for something that might be more achievable. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, and it's also an ethical form of spirituality. Like, there's spirituality in pursuing excellence in general. Like, I think that's what spirituality really is. And so I feel like those rituals and resonances that you get from fucking chasing those things and kind of trying to max out and find your potential is a very valuable process because it's self-satisfying. There's dignity that you can derive from that nobody can take away from you, because at least you were the guy in the arena who took the shot. At least you fucking tried. And I think that there's just a lot of value in crashing and burning is fine. It's fine if what you're doing is authentic and you're not doing it in a self-destructive, like, intentional way of copping out.
Yep, makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Take one more here.
Brute, do you mind if I add to that a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So, VX, let me ask you this question. If you felt like the current venture, or rather, let's say that the current venture blew up in your face completely, exploded in just epic failure, barring the time, to pick yourself back up and recover, do you think that you would completely quit and never pursue anything along that line, or another line? Or do you think you would pick yourself back up, reiterate, and attempt again?
I think I probably would, just because I'm kind of on the younger side. I'm 27, and so I understand that these types of big ventures take time. But at the same time, if this kind of blew up and I lost a couple of years trying to build it, then I guess a part of me would think I could have spent that time pursuing a simpler business and probably would have had a higher chance of making it a success. But I think, again, there is value in kind of going for a bigger goal, because at least you have that experience and that background now to kind of piggyback on and do something again that's big. But that's just kind of how I would think about it.
Definitely. Sure. I think that's good. Let me interrupt. I think
please.
so I think there's a mythical force here too that sort of feels kind of pataphysical, and that's that I don't believe you can interfere with a man's destiny. I do believe fate and destiny are absolutely interwoven into the game. Like, there's definitely there's definitely forces that are very destiny based. And I feel like no matter what path you take as a man, you're always going to sort of reside at where your destiny wants to bring you. Not in a fucking lackadaisical, like, passive kind of way, but if you're pushing the envelope, you're going to rise to where you're supposed to rise. And nothing that you deserve is ever going to flee from you if you were meant to have it. I truly believe in that spiritual principle. So it's like, you should be attacking these businesses and shit because your destiny will intervene on your behalf 1000%. And the saying, winners always win, losers always lose. That axiom is actually talking about fate. And Jung said this. Jung said, fate is doing willingly that which you must do. Fate is doing willingly that which you must do. So there's certain things that you just have to do. You just have to go attack that juicy goal, and it doesn't really matter what happens because all roads lead to Rome for men. You will end up exactly where you belong. And there's peace in that, because even if you fail and even if you falter, you have to understand that you are realizing your destiny. You are absolutely a participant in your destiny, because there's a combination of free will and destiny, but like there is a spiritual force there that you have to be willing to abide by. And that's where I get a lot of my peace and confidence from, is knowing that there is some fucking genetic script that's being played out here. I do believe that. I believe there are codes written in our bones and our DNA that are inviolable and are pushing us and compelling us towards certain tendencies and proclivities that cannot be stopped by any force in the universe. There's no government, there's no corporation, there's no bureaucrat, there's no big cat, there's no bungling idiot who can intervene with those forces. So it's like, it's kind of like, in a way, you can't fail anything that you're really doing from that perspective. Like, there's no way to really fail because you're going to end up where you belong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do feel like this is something that is kind of, yeah, I feel like I have to do it, or else nothing else would really make sense for me. So
yeah, you have to see it through, and you don't know why. And you don't need to know why. And I think that's like a huge thing too, is like everybody talks about you have to figure out the why, you have to know why. I don't believe that's true at all. Some things are just ineffable, they're indescribable, they are so beyond human comprehension as to why you have to see this through. And I think that's the unique part of the human experience that nobody can interfere with. That's why self-help to a degree is garbage, because there's a lot of things that you want to do that no one could even, it's incomprehensible. No one could understand why you have to embark on this quest, but you just have to. There's something hiding behind there. There's a war chest. There's some treasure that has to be disinterred for you to sort of understand and make way for the next thing. So it's like, you really can't, from that perspective, like there's really no way to fuck things up, because you're just going to sort of rest at the trough of where you're supposed to be going anyway. I think that's an empowering perspective as well.
And that's exactly what I was alluding to with the question of, like you said, it's like if you have a vision or I don't want to say necessarily an ultimate goal, because these things change and they can be nuanced relative to, ventures and endeavors, but a vehicle will get you there, even if it isn't the one that you are currently undertaking. It very well may be the one that you are currently undertaking. The venture that you're in could be the thing that allows you to facilitate that greater goal or that greater vision. But if it isn't this, it will very likely be something else, as long as you continue to act towards it and feel compelled towards it, which, like you said, Brute, I don't even necessarily think for many people, myself included, it's not even really a choice. It's more of like a magnetic pulling towards.
I very much subscribe to that philosophy. Absolutely. I mean, destiny is a huge part of life. Destiny, I mean, many men have been anointed by forces they could never even comprehend as to why they were compelled to do things. And I think that we need to kind of just accept that that's true, instead of fighting against the grain all the time. That's why I said in past experiences that vices, to a degree, like the things that you are compelled to do that you know are not good for you, ultimately lead you to divinity. Because when you're experimenting with destructive things that are vices, things that have a grip on you, there's a lot of insight to be gleaned from that. Why are you compelled to continue to do these things? And it's like something that you feel like you can't help. Like it's almost something you feel that you cannot stop. But that energy can be harnessed and transmuted into something that you want to actually do. So it's just all about, like, it's fucking interesting, man. Like, vices will eventually bring you to your knees if you indulge in them long enough. And then when you're at your knees, you have that clarity and that purpose. Most people are unwilling to use that experience to alter the path and alter the course and go and head in a different direction. We'll take one more.
Hey, Brew, quick question. What do you think? Do you think you've gotten a sense of purpose that you've drawn from, like, your own culture or community that you grew up in? I'm not really sure where you're based out of, but just like, do you think that the family that we come from and everything, like how, and it's kind of what you were mentioning about, like there's certain things like genetically that there's nothing that we can do to change. And I was just wondering that what you think personally for yourself, like your community and your culture has affected like what you like, the sense of purpose that you've drawn in life.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's definitely accumulated ancestral trajectory for sure that I think is imbued and endowed in every individual that's born. I mean, obviously, the accumulation of the work of your ancestors has a very large impact. I believe blood is king. I believe blood is driving and taking people into situations that they have no clue why they're in, and that's what I'm kind of saying here is that's where the spiritual, metaphysical, pataphysical forces are coming from. So yeah, I mean, I don't particularly understand them in myself, but I know that I am drawn towards fanaticism. You know, there's a fanaticism in, you know, how physicians became physicians. What they used to do is, before we had fucking technology and science to understand the way the body worked, old school physicians, you're talking like the late 1800s, they would go on the Civil War battlefield and they would dig up the dead corpses to examine the organs and fucking like make incisions in them and figure out like how the body was working. Like these physicians would literally run onto the battlefield to experiment with corpses. Like that's how the whole medical industry was founded, upon that level of fanaticism. Like people don't have that level of curiosity anymore. Like you can use that as a metaphor. You know what I mean? Like that level of curiosity and more, you could call it morbid curiosity, which kind of laid the pathway to the whole modern sciences, and what we know about the human body started from that grassroots sort of punk ethic of just having minimalistic technology. We didn't have fucking microscopes. We didn't understand jack shit, but these motherfuckers were literally digging up dead bodies to understand how life works. And I think that's what men are called to do. We're called to go into situations where people have never seen this before. People have never examined this a certain way. People have never attacked this or approached this with this level of fanaticism and curiosity. And so I think that's where you really start to separate yourself from other people, is when you're willing to subject yourself to the grotesqueries of life and go into things that ordinary people don't want to see. People don't want to see the truth. People don't want to dig deeper into things. They want to be medicated and they want you to tell them how things are. But if you are a fanatic and you are a fucking conquistador and you're willing to experiment things with the level of the fanaticism that those physicians did, you're going to be donned with the greatest wisdom on planet Earth. And then you can incorporate that into your philosophy. And now you start building your own fucking body of work, because it was your own curiosity that stemmed from that. That was a good question. We got one more. I'm gonna get, what's his name? I think he just actually dumped off. Let's get Alex on here. Alex, what up? Alex.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, how you doing, Brute? So a while ago, I listened to your podcast with with Sobra, and you spoke about this figure that was sort of like your mentor. And I was wondering how you went about finding that relationship and how you built it. And do you believe that it's something that finds you or that you're supposed to look for? I just feel like a lot of people either have the success or they don't have the balls and vigor to match that. Or if they do have the balls and vigor, they just don't have the success. And I feel like if I were to see someone that had those attributes, I would pursue that relationship. But I'm just trying to see what you think about that, because you spoke a lot about how that relationship with that person really built who you became.
Yeah, so this is a perfect tie-in. This is all what I'm talking about style, aura, swagger. Like there's a certain, see, when I met that individual, I was in a survivor mode. I was basically homeless. I had nowhere to go, and I was really clutching on to try to figure out where the fuck I was going in my life. And when you're in that survivor state, you do come across very seedy characters. There's like characters that will enter your life who you wouldn't ordinarily pursue if things were fucking Gucci. So yeah, my aura certainly fucking attracted that figure into my life at that time, and it was what I needed. That motherfucker was rough hewn too, carved from fucking stone, had a very fucking rough upbringing, and we were just sharing our experiences and chopping it up, and it just took itself from there. But yeah, I mean, it's aura and fucking swagger, dude, is fucking everything. It's like that's why I always say, like, these motherfuckers who are stuck in their apartments and shit, and like, they don't have these kind of relationships because they're not out in the world. I'm out in the world every fucking day. I'm tweeting when I'm in fucking restaurants. I'm out and about meeting people constantly. I'm extremely gregarious, dude. And it's like, it's never been easier to pussy out as a man right now. Like, there's so many ways to bitch out. I don't even think women get approached in public as much as they used to anymore. I think like guys are afraid to even talk to women anymore because they can just go on Tinder. So it's like, it's just never been easier to find ways to pussy out of doing anything. And so there truly is zero competition, because like you'll see these women walking around and they have like they have like an angry expression on their face, but what guys don't understand is that they're waiting for someone to crack that nut. They're waiting for someone to swing the sledgehammer at that game and like break that mask. So like the woman who's walking around with like an angry expression on her face, she's just waiting for a strong motherfucker that's not intimidated by that to come talk to her. And then all of a sudden, she's fucking sweeter than pie. So it's like guys are just fucking intimidated and scared of the real fucking world, man. And like you can translate that to men too. Guys are fucking walking around cold shouldering and snubbing guys who are doing better than them because they think they're fucking too cool for school. But you have to be willing to fucking talk to people and be gregarious and get out in the real fucking world, man. That's where all the magic is. Nothing I've learned came from online or books. It's all from just fucking swinging shots in the fucking real world and moving. Like, I'm a fucking nomad, man. I'm just constantly fucking traveling and moving around and meeting people. Guys have to do that shit. It's never been easier to win and be successful doing that.
I appreciate that.
Anyway, thank you, man. I'm gonna shut the space down, man. This was a good one.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.